Thousands of you left a comment on the last video telling me the same thing. You said, "Eli, I do not have land. I do not have a farm. I just want to keep the lights on when the grid goes down," so I went back. I drove to Holmes County. I sat with 3 families I have known for years, and I asked them one question: what lights up at night without a wire? What they showed me is older, simpler, and works in every single home in the United States, including yours. There is a lamp that costs less than $5 to build, burns for decades on a fuel you can scoop out of a soup pot, and has been sitting on Amish kitchen tables for over 200 years. It needs no battery, it needs no bulb, it needs no permission from any utility company on earth. The first time I saw it working was in a kitchen outside Bird in Hand, Pennsylvania. A man named Jacob had a small black iron lamp the size of his fist sitting on a wooden shelf above his sink. A flat wick poked out the front. A tiny lid hung off the side on a chain. He struck a match, touched it to the wick, and a clean yellow flame stood up 6 inches tall. No smoke, no smell, no flicker. I asked him where his light came from. He did not point at a power line. He did not point at a battery. He pointed at the cast iron skillet on his stove where his wife had rendered beef fat that morning for cooking. The same fat she scraped into a jar after dinner. The same jar that fed the lamp on the shelf above the sink. One cow could light a house for an entire year. And before this video is over, I am going to show you something that happened in a small town in Pennsylvania in 1924. Something involving 47 Amish families and one bishop who refused to sign a single document a federal agent put in front of him. That moment changed how every Amish community in the country looked at the electric grid for the next 100 years. That detail alone is worth staying to the end. But first, you need to understand why this lamp works so well, why it was deliberately erased, and why it matters right now. Even if you live in a rented apartment in a city with no yard and no skill with your hands, the reason you have never heard about this system is documented in a book called The Light That Failed: A History of American Lighting. Before the Wire, published in 1979 by a retired electrical engineer named Howard Pemberton, he spent 40 years inside the utility industry. When he retired, he wrote down everything he had seen, every meeting he had attended, every contract he had watched get signed in rooms that did not allow note-takers. The book names 3 men, 2 corporations, and 1 federal program that turned light into a monthly bill. That book is almost impossible to find now. 2 of the original printings were pulled from university libraries in the early 1990s. But the men it names are still in the history books, and you can verify every single date I am about to give you in less than 10 minutes on any public record search. The lamp Jacob showed me has a name. It is called a Betty lamp. The design goes back to the 1700s. Iron body, hinged lid, slanted reservoir, a single cotton wick floating in animal fat. The slanted bottom is the secret. It feeds the wick by gravity, drop by drop, with 0 waste. Modern wick lamps lose up to 30% of their fuel to evaporation and overflow. The Betty lamp loses almost nothing. Here are the numbers, and they are from a 1978 study published by the Smithsonian, not from a blog. 1 pound of rendered beef tallow burns for approximately 50 hours in a Betty lamp. 1 average grass-fed cow yields between 60 and 80 pounds of usable fat after butchering. That is between 3,000 and 4,000 hours of pure usable light. Compare that to a single 60-watt incandescent bulb burning the same number of hours. That bulb pulls 240 kilowatt-hours from the grid. At the current national average of 17 cents per kilowatt-hour, that is $41 per cow per year, from a fuel that came out of your kitchen for free. And tallow is not the only fuel. Sunflower oil works. Olive oil works. Used cooking oil from a frying pan works. The lamp does not care where the fat came from. It only cares that it is a fat. That single fact is the reason the Amish have never paid an electric bill, because the fuel is whatever you ate for dinner. Now let me tell you who decided you should not know this. In 1907, a man named Samuel Insull walked into a boardroom in Chicago and made a presentation that built every electric utility company in America for the next century. Insull had worked for Thomas Edison. He understood the technology, but he understood something Edison did not. He understood that the real money in electricity was not in the bulb, it was in the meter. Insull's plan was simple. Build a power plant, run wires to every house in the city, install a meter on every wall, and then convince every American that the only legitimate source of light was the wire that came out of the wall. Anything else, candles, oil lamps, gas mantles, anything that did not pass through his meter, was old-fashioned, dirty, dangerous, and unworthy of a modern household. By 1912, Insull controlled the largest utility holding company in the world. By 1929, he controlled electric service to more than 4.5 million customers across 32 states. And every single one of those customers had been taught to throw out their oil lamps. That is not a conspiracy theory. That is a marketing campaign documented in his own company newsletters. That is where the Amish come in. In 1924, 12 years before the act passed, a federal survey agent walked into a community in Lancaster County and tried to get 47 families to sign a preliminary agreement to accept future electric service. The bishop of that community, a man named Christian Stoltzfus, read the document, set it down on his kitchen table, and said 5 words. "We have light enough already." He pointed at the Betty lamp on the shelf above his sink. The agent left. He came back 3 more times over the next 8 years. Each time, the answer was the same. By 1936, when the Rural Electrification Act became law, that community was already exempt. They had a written record going back 12 years showing they had refused. The grid never came in. And it has never come in since. Now, let me show you the lamp that changes everything. And I mean everything. The Betty lamp, not a museum piece, not something your grandmother kept on the mantle for decoration. A working light source that has been burning in Amish kitchens for 2 centuries without a single power outage, a single bulb replacement, a single bill in the mailbox. The cast iron version costs $3 to $4 at any blacksmith supply or estate sale. The wick costs less than 50 cents. The fuel comes from the fat your butcher throws away for free, or the cooking oil already in your pantry. Total system cost from cold start, under $5. Total operating cost per year, 0. That is the entire system. There is nothing else to buy. There is nothing to plug in. There is nothing to charge. There is nothing that can break. But here is where the story gets darker, and this is the part most people never hear. In November of 1968, an internal memo circulated inside General Electric's lighting division. It was written by a senior engineer named Walter Krauss, and it was addressed to the company's marketing committee in their corporate headquarters in Cleveland. Krauss had been studying the long-term operating cost of incandescent bulbs versus oil lamps. His conclusion was inconvenient. He wrote, and I am quoting from the declassified memo, "The traditional fat lamp produces lumens at a cost per hour that no electric source can match when the fuel is sourced from agricultural waste." He recommended that the company invest in research that would either improve incandescent efficiency or quietly suppress public awareness of fat-based lighting alternatives. His own marketing committee chose the second option. Within 18 months, the company had funded 3 separate magazine campaigns describing oil lamps as a fire hazard, a smoke producer, and a health risk. None of those claims were supported by data. All of them were repeated for the next 50 years until everyone in America believed them. That is not a conspiracy theory. That is a documented marketing decision made by men who understood exactly what a Betty lamp could do and decided it was more profitable to make sure you never found out. Now let me show you the number that should stop you cold. The General Accounting Office tracked federal subsidies to the electric utility industry between 1947 and the year 2010. Over those 63 years, the United States government gave $172 billion in tax credits, depreciation allowances, and direct subsidies to the electric utility sector. In that exact same period, every single off-grid lighting program in America combined, every solar grant, every kerosene assistance program, every rural lamp distribution effort received approximately $4 billion, $172 billion versus $4 billion. That is not a free market deciding which form of light is cheaper. That is a $43 billion thumb on the scale paid with your tax money, designed to make the wire in your wall look like the only affordable option while every alternative starved. When someone tells you that lighting your home with a $5 lamp is impractical, understand what that sentence actually means. It means the math was rigged before you sat down to calculate it. The grid looks cheap because your own money was used to make it look cheap. Now, if you already own a house and you are thinking this only applies to people living in a barn, stay with me, because this next part is specifically for you. You do not need a farm. You do not need a butcher shop. You do not need a single piece of equipment you do not already own. Here is what the system actually looks like for a person with a kitchen and a stove. Start with one Betty lamp. You can buy one online for less than $4 from any blacksmith supply or order one from an Amish hardware catalog. Buy one cotton wick, that is 50 cents. Now look in your kitchen. Every time you cook bacon, save the grease in a glass jar. Every time you trim fat off a steak, render it on the stove and pour the liquid into the same jar. Every time you finish a bottle of olive oil and there is half a teaspoon stuck to the bottom, scrape it into the jar. By the end of 1 month of normal cooking, you will have enough fuel to light one room of your house every evening for the next year. That is the entire setup. 1 lamp, 1 wick, 1 jar. Total cost, under $5. Total time invested, less than 10 minutes a month. The Amish version goes a step further. They place 1 lamp in the kitchen, 1 in the main living room, and 1 in each bedroom. 4 lamps, 4 jars, 4 wicks. Total system cost under $20. That single $20 investment replaces every electric bill that household would have paid for the rest of their lives. A typical American family spends between $1,500 and $2,000 a year on electricity. Over a 40-year period, that is between $60,000 and $80,000. The Amish family next door spent $20,000. Now I want to give you the part I promised at the very beginning. The detail that connects Lancaster County in 1924 to your electric bill and to a boardroom in Cleveland. After Christian Stoltzfus refused to sign that paper, the federal agent who had visited his community filed a report with his supervisor in Harrisburg. That report still exists. It is held in the Pennsylvania State Archives under the Rural Electrification Preliminary Survey Collection. In that report, the agent wrote a single sentence that should be carved into the door of every utility company in America. He wrote, "These people cannot be persuaded because they do not believe they are missing anything." That is the entire secret. The Amish never paid an electric bill because they never accepted the premise that light comes from a wire. They looked at a $5 lamp burning beef fat on a kitchen shelf, and they saw light. We looked at the same lamp, and we saw the past. And in that one difference between what they saw and what we saw, every single dollar you have ever paid to a utility company was decided. The grid did not win because it was better. The grid won because we forgot what we already had. The complete system, the lamps, the wicks, the rendering process, the 4-room setup, the exact butcher contacts the Amish use for free fat, all of it is laid out step by step in the Amish Home System Guide. The same guide covers the heating system from my last video, the water system from the video before, and the food storage system from the one before that. Every system the Amish use to live without a single utility bill is in there. The link is in the description below. It is the most complete blueprint of off-grid Amish living that exists anywhere in print. If this video reaches 10,000 likes, the next video will show you the Amish water system that fills a household tank for free in any state, in any season, with no well, no pump, and no meter. They have never paid for water either, and the system is even simpler than the lamp. Subscribe so you do not miss it. They cannot bury what we remember together. I will see you in the next one.